All right, welcome to Church in the Wild. We're not doing communion today. If you think that's what's about to happen, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But instead, I am going to introduce that we're doing a brand new cooking show today. I'm going to cook. I'm going to make cookies for you today. I am no Giada. I am no Rachel Ray. I don't use butter like the lady that says y'all all the time, although I did bring some. But hey, I made Christmas cookies for you guys today, Christmas cookies, and I'm so excited about that. If you got a Bible, Luke chapter 2, while you are turning there, couple things. Number one, we have this free resource. This is a Christmas devotional. It's called A King Like This, and we did this as a sermon series 2 years ago, and then we are turning it into a free devotional. And we do this with all of our sermon series now. In January, we will be releasing another one. And so we're just keeping equipping you and resourcing you as we do that. Also, next Sunday, Christmas Eve service, kids program will be amazing up here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I got to look at some of the outfits and some of the show, and they gave like a little demonstration of the show. It's going to be really fun. They're going to sing the Holly and the Ivy. That's going to be a blast. And then on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, whatever day the 31st is, we are not having a service. So please do not come unless you want to tear down. You want to tear things down from Christmas Eve, go for it. You can show up, but you'll be the only one. So please don't come for that. We will resume in January, and some really exciting things. Groups will resume in January as well. And so we're really excited about groups this year. Really good path, I think, forward with those. Luke chapter 2, I'm going to start reading at verse 8. I'm actually going to read quite a few verses here, but in the same region there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord showed round about them, and they were filled with great fear. I think we often fail to understand that you would be very afraid if you saw an angel too. I think we picture them to look the way like Precious Moments makes them look. Biblically, angels are terrifying, and this is why every time you see an angel in the Bible, the angel's like, hey, don't be afraid. Because if you saw someone with 6 wings and like 27 eyes, you'd be afraid too, right? And he said, fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior who is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. Suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those with whom he is pleased. When the angels went away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, let us go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us. They went with haste, and they found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger. When they saw it, they made known the saying that had been told them concerning this child, and all who heard it wondered at what the shepherds told them. Last week we talked about this, but Mary treasured up all these things in her heart, pondering them. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all that he had heard and seen as it had been told them. And at the end of 8 days, this is the part of the Christmas story that I just think we like kind of skip because it doesn't fit with like a little nativity scene. And at the end of 8 days, when he was circumcised, he was called Jesus, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. And when the time came, if you like to underline or circle things, underline or circle time came, because that is so interesting. For their purification, according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Every male who first opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. And to offer a sacrifice according to what is said to the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. And this is where it gets really interesting. Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and this man was righteous and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. And it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not see death before he had seen the Lord, Christ. He came in the Spirit into the temple, and when the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him according to the custom of the law, he took him up in his arms and blessed God and said. And then you can read the rest of the chapter. I think this part of the Christmas story is so interesting because it's a part of the Christmas story that we kind of just don't read about typically. There's a part of the Christmas story that I think that we don't read, and that's that part about how Jesus comes to the temple when he's a child. Now, typically, we will talk about the Magi, the wise men coming to see him, and we'll have that conversation. Were they there? Did they come a year later? Did they come 2 years later? But we often skip the part of this guy's Simeon. And if you continue reading on, you'll hear about this girl named Anna. And this part of the story of Jesus, to me, is so fascinating because there's so much to be found in it, and yet we just kind of typically skip over it. So let's talk about cookies. I think when it comes to Christmas, Christmas is the season of joy. When we talk about joy, we typically associate joy to the world. We typically associate songs. We think of getting presents. We think of wrapping, not like Tupac rapping, but wrapping paper on the presents, right? We think about all of these things, and we think of the movies. We think of Elf. We think of all these wonderful, fun things, but there's very few things that sum up joy better than Christmas cookies. I think Christmas cookies are absolutely an incredible part of Christmas. To give cookies, to receive cookies, I think they are absolutely incredible. So, I made some cookies, and I'm just gonna pass these around. So, Lance, sorry, you're gonna have to be the first one to pass. Don't worry, they're very safe. They're very safe. I promise, Lance. Go ahead. No, made some cookies, and I think everyone enjoys Christmas cookies. I think everyone has like a cookie that they prefer at Christmas time. And it's fun to get them. It's fun to receive them. These are sugar cookies, and they're Pillsbury Doughboy, just fresh, good sugar cookies. But what if I came to you and said, hey, would you enjoy all-purpose flour? Would you like me to give you some cookies? And you were like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, okay, let me get a cup of flour, and let me just go ahead and pour flour for you to eat it. You would not want to eat, I'm going to have to do this the tricky way. You would not have to want to eat a cup of flour, right? Anybody in here you just love flour so much that you're like, you know what? I want the flour. Anybody? No? Okay. All right. Any takers? How about butter? Anybody in here, you love butter? Okay. You want to try some butter? You really do? Okay. You'll eat the whole butter? I was not expecting this in this sermon. Never mind. Let's close. We're done. Invitation. So many of you like butter, I guess. All right. No one's going to shake my hand after this sermon. Not many of us, will say that, would love to just chew on a big old piece of butter. How about if I just pour for you and I come up to you and say, hey, since you love sugar cookies so much, what if I just give you a nice cup of fine Himalayan sea salt? Does anybody want some fine Himalayan sea salt? You do? Not many. Okay, a couple of you. Why don't we like sea salt to just eat when it's plain by itself? It's salty, right? It's kind of bitter. What about vanilla? Thank you, Christian. You want to try these things? You're too willing. How about vanilla? Anybody like, you know what, a good teaspoon of vanilla? I just love to eat vanilla. No? How about the sugar? We all love the sugar, right? The sugar when it comes time for Christmas, the Christmas cookies. I was reading last night on how to make this. I'm supposed to do a cup and a half of sugar. A cup and a half of sugar. See if I can pull this off. Nope. All right. That right there is, you don't get this body by not eating sugar. I'm telling you. There's one. We'll call that a half. One and a half is two. Okay? Anybody in here love eggs? You like raw eggs? Anybody? No, nobody in here is rocky. You're just going to, how about if I just give you just an egg? There we go. Just one. Just one. Why don't we love eggs? What am I going to do the rest of the day after this sermon? The eggs are messy, aren't they? They're messy. Thank you. You guys, more cookies for you and Christian. Truth is, life is a lot like Christmas cookies. There are parts of our life that are messy. And we don't always love the messy parts. Christmas is coming. We love to open the presents. That's fun. We don't always necessarily love the conversation around the Christmas table about politics because it's messy. It gets messy. You know, sometimes in life, relationships get kind of messy. We all have messy moments in our life. And here is the truth about cookies. If you just take the moments on their own, they don't produce joy. If you just take the ingredients on their own and say, you know what, I'm going to eat a cup and a half of flour, or I'm just going to go ahead and drink some vanilla, or I'm just going to go ahead and have a raw egg or two, it gets messy. It's not great. Some of the moments in life get bitter. We all have those bitter moments. And yet, when life is all together, when we look at life from the big picture, we see joy in the lives of those of us who follow Christ because we see the entire picture removed. The truth about the cookie is what makes the cookie good is all the ingredients that went into it together produce something sweet and good to enjoy. And the moments in life that are bitter are necessary to help produce a life full of joy. The moments that are messy are unfortunately for us necessary because they lead to a life that is full of joy. If you only live life ingredient by ingredient by ingredient, you will not have a joyful life. But when you look at what God is doing with all of the things around you at all of the time, you begin to see joy. See, the truth is, joy lives above your circumstances. It lives above your circumstances. I think that we fall victim here in America to thinking that joy is something for believers that means that we will always be super happy no matter what. We're often told or taught even that as long as we follow Christ, everything will be beautiful and wonderful. There used to be an old Southern gospel song, and it said, now life is sunshine and roses and only a thorn every now and then. And I'm like, that is not theologically accurate at all. The disciples had a lot more than a few thorns every now and then. The truth is, life, like cookies, can at moments be messy. They can at moments be bitter. They can at moments be salty. They can at moments be sweet. Life can be sweet. But when we pull ourselves back to a 30,000-foot view, we can see that Christ was with us through the entire time, and then we begin to see the moments where his joy got us through the messy times. There's been times in my life where I kind of come out of something and I'm like, I'm not really sure how I got through that. And then I look back and realize that I didn't get through that. God's joy is my strength, and it got me through that. So one thing we can learn from making Christmas cookies is that life is above the ingredients. But another thing that we can learn is this. I have a temptation whenever I go to make cookies, because the recipe will say, preheat the oven to 325 and cook those things for 11 to 14 minutes. And I don't know about you, but what I do in my mind is like, well, I bet if I turn it up to 450, I can only have to cook it for 5 minutes and they'll be just as good. And I tried this yesterday. I was going to bring an air fryer in here and like air fry cookies in the sermon, but I tried this yesterday and I absolutely roasted the cookies. Why? Because I was like, you know what? If 325 for 11 minutes is fine, 450 for 5 is going to be even better. I'll have time to watch the Lions game. And the cookies came out absolutely burnt to a crisp. In life, you cannot rush the ingredients and expect to live a joyful life. I had you read this story about Simeon because I want you to think about this man. So Isaiah, we read Isaiah chapter 35, and we watch the video about Isaiah chapter 35, and here he is, he's prophesying joy, and he's prophesying, oh, the lame will leap for joy, and the deaf will hear, and he's prophesying all of these things, and they're all wonderful, and they're full of joy. And this man, Simeon, has waited his entire life for that moment. Isaiah's prophecy is probably 700 years before Jesus comes to be born. And if it were me, I would go ahead and tell Simeon, hey, you know what? He's going to be born in a manger in Bethlehem. You don't have to wait the extra 8 days. Just go to the manger. He's there. But the Bible on purpose says, like, when the time of purification was complete. Why? Because joy cannot be rushed. Joy cannot be rushed. Here's what a lot of us want to do in life. A lot of us want to hurry moments along and rush them along because we think, well, we'll just get to the joy faster. And then we wonder why we don't have the joy that we look for. This happens, here's what happens. We're dating. Anyone in here dating? Rachel sang today. She's about to get married in a couple weeks. She was awesome. That was a great song. Raj was playing the keys. And I remember Raj talking to me and saying, God, pray to God that I will find God's person for me. And we prayed that prayer for a while. And then he met Rachel, and it was like, click, like, that's the one. And they're getting married here in a couple weeks, and I get to be a part of the wedding, and I'm super excited about this. But often what we do in life is, you know what, I want to be happy now. So I'm just going to go ahead and do whatever it takes to get that man to ask me to marry him. And we wonder why we don't live a life full of joy. You know what, I want to get married now, so I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get her to say yes. And we're just going to get married now. I don't care if her parents are for it. I don't care. We're just going to go ahead and do this now. And we wonder why we live a life without joy. For us, we went years without owning a house, and there was often this temptation to just do whatever it takes to go, because I want to have a house. But if you rush the ingredients, you will lose joy. See, unfortunately, what we do is we hurry through these moments. We rush through these moments, and you can't make cookies in a minute. It takes time to make good cookies. It takes some time to get the ingredients right. It takes some time to mix. We were mixing these things yesterday, Isla and I, and we didn't have the big fancy paddle that's supposed to spin them and mix them. And so it was me and her for 30 minutes just mixing these cookies up. It takes time to have good Christmas cookies. If you want to live a joyful life, you cannot rush the ingredients. If you're looking for joy, he waits his entire life, and then joy arrives on the planet, and yet he has to wait 8 more days. And when Jesus is presented to him, he's overjoyed. He prophesies, Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace according to your word. My eyes have seen your salvation that you have prepared in the presence of all people, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and glory to your people Israel. This is a man whose life is full of joy. This is a man who did not rush the ingredients. Can I just tell you, we get in such a hurry here. We get in such a hurry. But God rarely reveals himself to rushed people. He rarely does. You almost never see someone running in the Bible, and as they run, Jesus is like, hey, hold on, let me talk to you. Usually you find Jesus talking to people who have spent 40 years alone in a wilderness wandering around. Jesus would never rush. When you find Jesus in his earthly ministry, we never find him saying to Peter, you got to row faster, we got to get there. That boy's on the other side, we got to get there. We find Jesus arriving at the perfect time, never in a hurry, and living a joyful life. But the other thing I think that's important, and this is where I'm going to put you on the spot. No, I'm not going to make you eat this mess that I just made up here. But my favorite Christmas cookie is a cookie that my mom makes, and it's called a whoopie pie. Does anybody in here know what a whoopie pie is? A couple. Oh, good. Okay. All right. So whoopie pies are like chocolate, and there's vanilla frosting in the middle, and then more chocolate. And they're really heavy, and they're really thick, and they're really sweet, and you kind of have to drink milk with them. And my mom makes those for Christmas Eve, and I think those are amazing. I will try to eat 1 or 2 of those, and you didn't get this body by eating celery, I can tell you that. It's those cookies, right? I love those cookies. But what if I'm trying to make sugar cookies, and I start to watch my mom make her cookies, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, she's putting those ingredients in hers. Maybe I should add those to mine. Somebody tell me their favorite Christmas cookie. It's okay. You can speak out loud in church. Somebody tell me their favorite Christmas cookie. What is it? What's a spritz? Oh, okay. Okay. What's in butter cookies? What's in a spritz? Butter? Okay. Okay, okay. All right, somebody tell me another one. You got one? What is it? Sugar cookies. Yes. Love those. Love them. Somebody else. Give me another one. Oatmeal raisin cookies. Okay. Anybody? I love oatmeal raisin cookies. But what if I'm making cookies and Beth's beside me making spritz and you're making sugar cookies and Jerry's making oatmeal raisin cookies and I start looking at everybody and I'm like, what are you putting in your cookie? Well, you got oatmeal and raisin. Well, I'm going to put those in mine. Do you know what I would do to my Christmas cookie? I'd ruin it. I'd ruin it. Somebody name me another cookie. Chocolate chip. Cam's favorite one, the voice from the back. Is that God? No, that's just Cam. Chocolate chips. You don't put chocolate chips in my Christmas cookie. Somebody else, another cookie. Peppermint chocolate chips. Great, great. Okay, somebody else. We're going to have an invitation soon. Somebody else. Pepper caca. Okay? Yeah. So, okay. So that's like a really thin, ginger kind of hard cookie. It's really good. That's what Sam's Mormor makes for Christmas. My aunt used to make these little round cookies. I don't know what they were because I was too busy eating them. And they had raspberry jam, and you like pushed your thumb down in the middle and filled. What is it? Raspberry thumbprints. Okay. So if I'm making my cookies, and I see you making pepper caca, and I'm like, well, why do you get the ingredients you get? And I see Jerry making oatmeal raisin, and I see someone making raspberry thumbnails and spritz. What do I do to my cookies if I spend all of my time looking at the ingredients you put in yours? I ruin my cookies. I find this to be so convicting because you think about Elizabeth. Elizabeth is told, you're going to have this child, and this child is going to be John the Baptist. And everybody celebrates. I mean, like, everybody gathers around Elizabeth and they're like, this is amazing, this is awesome, and they're celebrating with her. Mary gets told, also by an angel, that she's going to have a child. And nobody celebrates with Mary. In fact, the only person that she's recorded as telling is considering, how do I get rid of her without people knowing? And yet we see Mary say to the angel, be it to your servant as according as you will wish. If Mary based her joy on how Elizabeth was treated versus how she was treated, she would not have lived a life full of joy. So here's what happens in our life. You want to lose your joy? Jump on Instagram and compare how your spouse treats you to how somebody else's spouse treats them on Instagram. Comparison is the thief of joy. You want to lose your joy? Compare the Christmas presents that you get to the presents that somebody else gets. You want to lose joy? Compare the house you have to the house your grandparents have. You want to lose joy? Compare the car you're riding in to the car somebody else who has the same job is riding in. See, I get in trouble every March. I am going to fully confess my sin to you right now. I get in trouble every March. On Instagram, I follow pastors, professional athletes, surfers, people who video or photography people, and people who like to go hunting or fishing. And do you know where all of those people go every March? They go to the warmest places on the earth. And I go to work in the middle of March in Ohio, and one day I wear shorts to the office. And then the next day I wear a full snowsuit because Ohio's bipolar. And the next day I wear kind of warm clothes because Ohio's crazy. And if I get on Instagram and I start looking at like, oh, well, this guy, he goes surfing. He's in Bali. I don't know why why can't God call me to Bali? Why am I not in Bali? Why aren't there missionaries to Bali? I surrender. Like, I used to try to trick God as a kid because missionaries would come to our church and they would say, I told God I'd go anywhere but Africa, and here I go to Africa. And every time I heard it, I would go forward and pray, God, I'll go anywhere but Hawaii. Anywhere, just send me anywhere but Hawaii. Just maybe I can trick him. You want to lose sight of joy? Compare the ingredients in your life to the ingredients in someone else's life. There is nothing that will steal your joy faster than, well, they treated Elizabeth this way. I mean, the thing we know about Mary is that the Bible says there's no room at the inn. She's fully expecting a child. And some Bible scholars think that that means when she's going to the inn, she's going to her family, so like distant families' houses, and they have like an extra house for people to stay at who are related because they do these taxes pretty regularly, so they build these extra homes. And there are some Bible scholars who claim that when she's arriving and they say there's no room at the inn, that's her family saying to her, yeah, we don't believe you, so go ahead and get out. Go find a place to have that baby anywhere but on our property. Now, even if that's not true, her reception, think about riding a donkey when you're 9 months pregnant. Like all the way, day by day by day, only to get to a hotel and them tell you, sorry, we have no interest in letting you stay with us. We're full. Move on. If Mary compares her life to Elizabeth, Mary doesn't have a very joyful life. Everyone surrounds Elizabeth. Everyone celebrates Elizabeth. Everyone gathers together and has a little baby shower for Elizabeth. Everyone talks about John the Baptist. You know what they say about her son? That he's illegitimate. And yet Mary lives a joyful life. Why? Because you cannot compare the ingredients in your life to the ingredients in someone else's life. The spouse that God has for you is the spouse that God has for you, and comparing that spouse to somebody else at work will not lead to joy. Comparing how your spouse dresses to the person who dresses a certain way at the office will not lead you to joy. Comparing the trips your spouse takes you on versus the trip that someone on Instagram takes their spouse on will not lead you to joy. Comparing the way your parents raise you to the way that other people's parents raise them will not lead you to joy. You cannot spend your time making Christmas cookies by looking around at everyone's recipe and trying to figure out what you can take from them and why they have oatmeal raisin, but you only have sugar cookies. If you're looking for joy, work the ingredients that you have with you. I heard someone say it like this: walk with the people who are walking with you. Instead of looking around at how other people are doing their things, walk with those who are walking with you. But next, I think that if we really want to live a life full of joy, joy's best when it's in community. Joy's best when it's in community. You know what I think the fun part about Christmas cookies is getting them from people and giving them to other people. It's not really all that fun. I used to do this. I used to work at FedEx Freight, and when I worked at FedEx Freight, the two busiest nights was the night before Thanksgiving and the night before Christmas. And so I would work all night, and then all the day of that holiday, I would go home and just like maybe make like a microwave pizza and watch a movie by myself. It was not very much fun, but you know when life became really full of joy is when I met my wife and she started inviting me over to her family's house. Christmas was so much more fun with her family than it was by myself. Christmas cookies are best when we share them with people we love. Life is best and most joyful when we share it with community. Life is best and most joyful when we share it with community. But lastly, I think joy comes when we know the person who gave us the ingredients. There's a temptation, I think, when it comes to Christmas, at least if you're me and you're not very good at this. Like I'll be the first to tell you I'm not good at making barely anything. There's a temptation that I have to just say, okay, well, let me just go buy you some cookies from the store and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, there you go. But do you know how much better the cookies that my grandma made tasted than the ones from the store? My grandma, I can remember her just working and working in the kitchen for hours to make all of our family food. And when she brought those cookies out, they filled me full of joy. They were so good. Why? Because I knew the person who made them. Often in life, we seek for joy, but we look for kind of a store-bought version of the gospel. We look for a store-bought version of joy. How do I just get joy in a moment, in a moment, in a moment, in a moment? And we miss out on true joy. We miss out on the relationship that happens when Lance hands the cookies off to his mom. And she hands the cookies off, and all of you are like, I don't think I want to eat this thing because Jason made it, and I just saw him shove his hand in an egg. I don't think I want anything to do with this. But in reality, when we know the people, we know the person who made the cookies, and we know what they went through to make them, we find lives that are more full of joy. I don't really love store cookies as much as I love cookies that my wife makes for me. They're just better. If my wife makes me a sandwich, it's like 10 times better than any sandwich I can get at the store because my wife made it. In life, if you look for joy but don't know the source of joy, you are never going to find real, complete, full joy. Jesus is the source of joy. So everything else that we get joy from, every time we just do something to feel better, that is a counterfeit store-bought version that will never fully give us joy. Joy only comes when we know the one who is the author of joy, and his name is Jesus Christ. Joy comes only when we have a relationship with the one who gives us all the ingredients of life. Let me say it to you like this. Worship team, you guys can come up here. If I'm trying to find joy and the moment turns bitter, and that moment is really hard and it's kind of a bitter moment, and I lose sight of joy, and I'm kind of going through a bitter, hard time, if I don't know the person who gave me the moment, it's a lot harder for me to live a life that's full of joy. If I'm going through joy and life's messy, I have a messy moment, it's a lot harder for me to find joy if I don't know the person who controls everything and is over everything and above all things. Joy comes when we realize that if the moment happened, God allowed it to happen. And because we have a personal relationship with him, we can trust that he will walk us through every ingredient of life. Messy, bitter, salty, sweet, all of them. Because he's walking with us through that.